Welcome to the Mindful Healers podcast with Dr. Jessie Mahoney
and Dr. Ni-Cheng Liang.
We are physicians and leaders who are also trained in coaching, yoga, mindfulness, and integrative medicine.
We are also mothers, spouses, sisters, daughters, aunts, and friends.
In this podcast, we share candid, heart-centered, loving, science-based, thoughtful, and often fun conversations about the challenges life throws at us.
With our collective experience of over 30 years in physician and personal wellness, we reflect and offer pearls of wisdom for navigating life's challenges with more ease.
From parenting, marriages, money scarcity, cancer survivorship, uncertainty, challenges in practicing medicine, we cover it all.
We invite you to refresh your perspective and empower yourself with mindset, mindfulness, and other well-being tools that actually work. A quick reminder that nothing in our podcast is medical advice.
Welcome to today's episode, another in our series of successful coaching journeys. Today, I am honored to have Dr. Preetika Sidhu join me. She and I have been coaching since July 2020. She lives currently a completely different life than when we met 3 years ago. She has changed her thoughts on money, medicine, relationships, and even her vision of what a life well lived looks and feels like. The intention of today's episode is to share that when you change your mindset, you can literally outgrow your old life. We hope you will leave inspired by the possibilities that coaching offers to improve both your relationships and your career. We hope you'll have some insight into your personal relationship with scarcity mindset and fear-based decision-making, and especially how they may be keeping you stuck and limiting the possibilities in your own life. So welcome to our special guest, and I am going to have her, as I usually do, introduce herself and share a little bit about what she's doing now.
Hi, Jessie. My name is Preetika Sidhu. I am an ObGyn physician and a real estate investor right now. That's my identity, and it's progressing and changing even as we speak.
Literally every day, right?
Yes, yes.
So tell us a little bit. We met actually 3.5 years ago. We were just discussing when we started. So in July of 2020, you reached out. And I think it would be really helpful for folks to hear where you were then. And I know you've gone through several renditions of change to where you are now, but maybe we'll just start with that July 2020 when you reached out. Tell us a little bit about where you were sort of job-wise, and then also how you thought, because I think you think about the world and you approach life so differently, but it would be really fun to hear where you started.
Yeah. So July 2020, I'm sure everybody remembers, it was a couple months into COVID. So I had left my own private practice probably 2 years before that, and I was working for somebody. I actually was working for somebody, and I switched again. So this was the second person I was working for, and obviously things weren't great because of COVID, job-wise. Things were getting worse, just our call and our reimbursement and our pay and how we had to work and still show up. So I felt really stuck. That's I think a lot of people feel stuck, like I don't have a choice. I just have to keep doing this. And that's definitely the way I felt. And I felt that in a lot of scarcity, like I had to do this so I could make money, so I could support my family, and there's just no other way. So I was just telling you, the first time we met was just like one of the meet and greet, and I was in such a bad place. I remember asking you, kind of like, hope of all hopes, Jessie, you think you can help me? And it was this unequivocal, of course I can.
Yeah.
So it was my coaching journey, and it's been incredible since then, at the beginning of my coaching journey.
And so let's talk about how you left that first job. I think that would be
Right.
really helpful. A lot of people come for, help getting out of something that I will just say is not a good fit, and isn't working for them. And clearly that job was not a good fit for you. But as you mentioned, you had a lot of scarcity. And I remember even you having so much scarcity about the possibility of taking even 2 weeks off in between jobs. And
Right.
the scarcity of going from what I refer to as full scope OBGYN to a hospitalist type position. Do you remember your thoughts about why that was so hard and what was so scary about it?
Right. So you feel like you come with a set of skills. So just to rewind a little bit, I remember I felt like I couldn't leave because that's the conventional wisdom until you have another job. Like any doctor you talk to, it's like, why would you quit until you have another job? And you were one of the few people, along with my husband, who's like, you can quit whenever you want. There's no reason you have to have another job. And that was part of the scarcity of like, I have to have another job. I can't have it on my resume to have a gap that I have to explain. I can't take more than 2 weeks, and I have to have malpractice, et cetera, et cetera. So I quit that job before I had my other job. It all worked out fine because I learned that I had my back. I would figure it out if things didn't work out. I should trust myself, which I didn't at that time, but I learned to trust myself to know that I could figure it out regardless of what happened. And I think one of the things I realized is going from job to job wasn't going to make me happy. So changing the circumstance doesn't bring the happiness. You change yourself, and that's where the happiness comes from to move forward. And then, so I switched from private practice, full scope OBGYN, just to working in the hospital and OB focus. So then my scarcity mindset was on, I'm going to lose my GYN skills. Oh my God, should I keep doing this because I'm going to lose my GYN skills? And I can't even, it's been fine. It's been 3.5 years into it. It's been fine.
And you also had a worry and a story that OBGYN was different. And I work with a lot of OBGYN. So it's, and procedural specialties are different and the rules are different. And then a little bit of scarcity about only delivering babies. And maybe I don't know all the exact terminology, but they weren't as level 3 versus level 2 versus the severity of challenges in the cases, and that you would lose skills there. And you were very focused on what you would lose rather than what you would gain from the transition.
Right. I was definitely worried about, not having as much acuity in OB in the hospital and losing my GYN skills. But what I gained in retrospect just was a little bit of white space and time off because I was doing shift work now. So I had days off, and we're just talking about this. I thought I would like read books and watch Netflix those days and catch up on my shows. And what I found is I'm a person who likes new things and likes to learn. So I started learning real estate. And of course, there was a lot of scarcity in that. Oh my God, should I pay X number of dollars? I was talking to my husband about this. What's going to happen if it doesn't work? After a while, he was so tired of listening to me. He's just like, I don't even care if you do it, just spend the money. And I think it was like $3,000 and just do it. Even if you don't do anything with it, I just don't care. It's totally fine.
And what I also remember is that you were trying to figure out what you were interested in. So you did leadership training to see if that was it. And so you had the white space was lovely in that it gave you some time to kind of figure out who you were. And my thought is that the coaching is what allowed your brain to sort of decide that it wasn't more, like you didn't have to do leadership, that wasn't for you. And then you tried real estate and that was for you. And I think you actually kind of dabbled in a few other areas trying to figure out leadership within your new job. Was that what you wanted? And you mentioned this before, but that you changed job after job trying to change the circumstance. You were still trying to change the circumstances a little bit, rather as you were working on your brain. And I think sometimes you made a pretty quick switch in your job because when you came to me, you really needed to switch. It was really out of alignment for you and very uncomfortable and just not a good fit. And so I think oftentimes I'll tell people when they're transitioning, you want to change your thoughts before you change. Sometimes you need to change in order to change your thoughts. And so I think you did your thought work change a little bit to enable yourself to get out of that job. And maybe you just borrowed my belief, actually. Now I'm thinking like that it was going to work out. I don't, but then you really, that's when I think over that first year in your new job is when you really did your new thought work and changed how you approached the world and your life and even your priorities.
Yeah, for sure. I remember thinking that my new job was going to be great. The first few months were great. Wow, I get this opportunity, for free to do leadership. And I remember you were cautioning me, very gently along the way, like, just think if you really want to do leadership. Just think if, there are going to be bad times at this job too. So it's not, life is 50-50. It's not all going to be perfect. And of course, all those things played out. Like leadership wasn't for me. I really did not want to do it. And, this job wasn't perfect. It had a lot of nice things, but it wasn't perfect. There are bad things that happened here too that, gets your head spinning. So that was all important learning. And I would say the other part of it, for me and identifying with you is that we're kind of around the same age with kids around the same age. So I was, my kids had, my son was probably finishing high school. So it was that whole helicopter parent. Oh my God, my kids, what are they going to do? Is it all going to be okay? And I think that was the other really important part of coaching was detaching from my kids' outcomes and really letting them be. So my daughter still says like, Mom, I just don't understand why you couldn't have done this like years ago when I was in high school. You're such a different person now. So, and that was the other thing I remember you saying, like, you just show up as the new person. You don't have to talk anybody into coaching. You don't have to like say, people will notice. People do notice.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm thinking, you came primarily for your job and coaching around your career, but we've done a lot of coaching on moms and children and relationships, and that it's really clear evidence in my mind that we bring our same mind to all of the other things. So the scarcity mindset around work and opportunities becomes a scarcity worry about your children, and the catastrophizing that we do as an ObGyn, we tend to catastrophize about what might happen to our children. And then our tendencies to sort of fix, manage, and control, right? We bring that to wanting to change other people, for example. And so I'm wondering if you remember, and I know it was quite a while ago, but what the beginning things in coaching, what were the things, because you've been coaching a long time. So we sort of did your first round of coaching and you changed your job and you've been coaching ever since. And so what got you to keep going in the beginning? I feel like there were a lot of big epiphanies for you in that first round of coaching that have been part of why you've continued. One of yours is 50-50, because that comes up a lot, that life is 50-50.
Right. I think the learning that I was catastrophizing because a female physician in ObGyn, and that's what I get paid to do, is make sure the baby's not going to die, So, and learning that everything isn't a catastrophe. And that I think was one of them that I learned. And people pleasing was the other one, that I was a people pleaser. And I wanted, like my day job, I wanted everybody to like me. And it prevented me from sometimes being who I really am or wanted to be. And also realizing that some people are just going to not like me. And it's okay. They're not going to like me for whatever reason. Some things that I can't change. It goes back to Brooke's podcast about the peach.
The peach, yes. Yeah, absolutely. And so why don't you share now a little bit about how you make decisions now, or these sort of biggest mindset shifts that you think you've had over the last couple of years, at least working with me. And we'll talk a little bit about why working with me as opposed to all the other things that you've done, because you've done a lot of things. What are your thoughts about those mindset shifts and what helped you make them?
Right. I think one of the biggest things was going from scarcity to abundance, to realize that, things will work themselves out. I have to have faith. And I think I spent a lot of this time in these past few years is learning how to listen to myself and listen to my intuition. And it takes a lot of work because there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of noise everywhere. People telling you what to do. You worried about what people think and how you should do it. And I think the other thing that, resonates with me is just, I have to have my own back. It's all going to be uncomfortable. So I have to really trust myself and really just believe it. And it's, I think that's been transformational for me.
And I'm thinking when we first met, you really weren't listening to yourself. You were looking externally, which is what we were trained to do, right? If I thought it was okay, or if everyone else in the world would think it was okay if you changed jobs, would it be perceived as okay? Rather than your inner knowing that this was not a good fit and you needed to change. But I think over time, you now tell me all the time, my intuition told me that was a good decision, and you believe it. And it's true. But I think in medicine, so many of us were trained not to trust our intuition.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. We were trained that way, and to be very calculated. And that's what I always, everything was, everything you do, you try to get into medical school, you do residency, and then you become an attending. And, it's all very methodical. And I wanted my life to be methodical, and it was so disappointing that it wasn't following the path that I thought it was going to follow. And then, the other significant thing that I think I worked on initially was retelling my story, because I felt like I was a failure. I quit private practice, and then my partner who I left private practice, I felt like her life was great, and everybody else. So that gets us to that comparitis. Like, people are on their own path, their own journey, and comparing me to them is not helpful to me at all. It doesn't help me get anywhere. And I think that comes from a scarcity mindset when you look at that. And I've learned that to do that kind of with my children is, I can guide them and tell them, but, they're really at this age, they're going to do what they want to do. And it is their journey, and it is their path to make the mistakes that they're going to make and learn from them and grow from them. So I think those were other really big shifts in my thinking.
Yeah, I'm thinking actually, which is just kind of fun. We've done a lot of young adults coaching because I think a lot of people feel like your parenting journey is over at 18. And I'm like, nope, it never is. But I think our relationship, realizing that literally that's a time where as parents, we need a lot more coaching, because we have to trust. And we have to trust them. We have to trust ourselves that we did a good job raising them. We have to trust the process that they're going through. And we talk a lot on this podcast about how we were trained not to trust. And so I think for many women physician moms, it's a really difficult time. And it can be a time of real growth for us and them, and maybe even more connection. Because I have found when I let my kids do their own thing, they actually reach out more. Whereas when we're trying to force the connection and help them to do things, we have less connection.
Right. And I think the other way you put it is the season with your kids, it changes a lot. And, my daughter graduating from college moved back home, and my husband, even her last year of college, they were at each other's throats. And it was really distressing for me. And I just remember you saying, well, this is their season. It was like, I was the one that, was not getting along with her in high school. And now I'm getting along with her. And now we have still other challenges, just like you said, because the journey continues, and it's still a lot of coaching involved in my mindset to get through this. And, a 23-year-old thinks they know it all, and you have nothing to teach them or tell them that is at all useful, because you're certainly not their friend.
Right.
And they're still their mom. You're still just a mom, and they don't need a mom anymore. They think, at least.
And one of the things I love about our coaching together is that you will bring anything, right? It might be your daughter, it might be your work, it might be like And I think the beauty of coaching is the same principles apply to everything. And if you show up very open-minded about it, now you come to coaching, like, coaching will help. You just have to figure out where the crack is and how to let it in and let the shift happen. And I think that when you come to it with that just beautiful mindset, which is it's going to work, it really does work. And that has been, I think, a big transformation for you.
For sure, for sure. You as a coach have always said, and I've heard this from many, many people, that you always need a coach because there's always blind spots and things that you don't see that you don't know, kind of help you through it faster, get you through it faster and more effectively without so much pain, or feeling the pain, but just moving through the pain. We're not trying to not feel our emotions. That is been kind of significant as well, to have that process and trust the process.
Yeah. And perhaps that's a good pivot to sort of trusting the process of your transition, because you moved from this private practice, full scope practice to hospitalist. And then you have, I'm going to say, weaned yourself, cutting back shifts. And each cutback, I think, was a challenge for your mind because of these old deep-seated beliefs about what that meant. And now I'll let you explain, but to almost have cut back completely and pivoted into something, I think we often hear in the real estate world that we do it so we can leave medicine, but you actually found your passion in it. And now that I know more about your background, it makes perfect sense that it was your passion. But I think early on, you wouldn't give yourself permission to do that because that was a different person. And the other piece that I think is useful to mention is it isn't real estate or medicine, but you're sort of navigating them so that you can create something that feels really good to you. So do you want to tell folks about your transition and what allowed you to pare down and all those things?
Yeah. So I did quit my full-time W-2, so I'm just working as needed. And just told Jesse at the beginning of this podcast that I had my last date. Everybody's going to hold me accountable now that it's going to be on air. February 22nd is going to be my last day that I'm going to take an in-house hospital call. And I gave myself some time and space to think about what I want to do. And when you do that, other opportunities arise. And it's really, really been wonderful to be able to kind of go into real estate full-time and I'm going to transition into telemedicine and more the menopausal world, which is what my passion is at this time, working with women and women's health. And it's exciting to do that. And I think this is a good time to say, like, not only do I just have Jesse as my life coach, I have a whole nother coach. So it's almost been a year working with him. I did it mostly for real estate, but he considers himself a high performance coach. But when I said I was going to quit my W-2, I told both of my coaches, not only obviously my family, who was very supportive, but both my coaches, and they both said the exact same thing, coming from the same place. Both were physicians, both left medicine, and both knew how uncomfortable it was, and both knew where I could go. So I was really very great to have that support and have that vision from them. Didn't make it any less uncomfortable. It was still super uncomfortable to do that. And it still is uncomfortable. So that's why I said it out loud so I can be held accountable. And I'm very lucky. My husband's super supportive. My family's super supportive of all my transitions. And they just allow me to do what I want to do.
Could you have imagined that this is where you would be 3.5 years after you started coaching?
Absolutely not. I, did my reflections from 3 years ago and my thoughts and where I was, I never would have imagined I'd be here. Honestly, even from a year ago, I never would have thought that I would have quit my job. That's like you said, the old thought patterns, the security that I should have. I should just continue to work, per diem because I can, and that way I can maintain my skills. But it's not speaking to me anymore. And it's really hard on me to spend the night in the hospital. It's hard on my family. So it's not serving me anymore. So I have to let it go. It's still, this is
You're
still
working on it. It's a work in progress. And one of the things I see is that you're very patient. You know that it will take time, and you have really learned how long you need to sort of wean and then do a few less shifts. And to get to this point has been very much on your terms. I don't think you didn't push yourself to do it. Each step was uncomfortable, but you didn't go from working full-time as a hospitalist to not working at all. You did a slow, steady wean, and then a slow up leveling of doing things that you loved. And I think finding things that you loved. And that's where I actually think you've given yourself permission, because you found something else that you love. And so when many of us don't think of ourselves as multi-passionate, right? And we leave medicine because it's not good. And that is just running away from something, as opposed to you are very much moving towards something, and two things that you love. And I think you were already very involved in the real estate, right? And now you've decided, well, this is the part of medicine that I'm interested in continuing to pursue, or really pivoting. You're just shifting your lens and your focus. And I think many of us don't allow that, to really just decide we love something and we're going to do it. Even if it doesn't make sense, it makes sense in the end.
Yeah, I think we don't give ourselves time and space to find what we're passionate about, what really makes us happy. And then also, so then I found, like, I knew I loved women's health, and I wanted to continue to be involved and be supportive of it in some way. But, finally having that space and time, I made that commitment to telemedicine. And, so All In Remote is the name of the company I'm going to be like getting training from. And I'm doing it in a way so that I can focus on women's health, the things that make me happy about being involved with women's health. And if I didn't give it myself that time and space, I would never have found it. I was ready to say, well, I don't even know what it is. What's going to make me happy? I had a lot of different ideas. And then, I felt passionate about them for a short while, but then it didn't continue. So this is just taking the time, as you said, to have that patience. It's been a 6-month process trying to figure out, and it's going to be several more months, to get into that and to do that. But it's exciting and it's fun. It's not going to feel like work, right?
I think a lot of people struggle because they know that they want to do something different, and that there is a passion in there, but they can't find it. And I think you actually went through a rendition of different versions of women's health that you wanted until you landed on this. And it feels like it was a little bit of trying it on, not actually going and getting training or taking a job, but trying on what it would feel like to do this kind of medicine. Do I really want to do it? And I think that part of that process was your brain really wanting to have something. And then you would jump to the next thing and to the next thing. And now you've landed where you thought you would land. You mentioned a couple times that it was time and space that allowed you to finally figure it out. I think so often we're in a hurry to figure it out.
I think that's what other really significant thing I learned with coaching. You don't have to figure it out right away. Mm-hmm. You don't have to know the answer. We're so used to knowing the answer because that's the way our lives have always been, and the impatience about it, and if I don't figure it out, then I don't know what I'm going to be doing. So I was kind of like, okay, so I just, maybe I'll have a charity down the road when I make enough money from real estate that I could help women's health. That's where mine was going, because nothing else was making any sense. Mm-hmm. So this feels right. And again, just the intuition about it, and just meeting the right people, and, having their support and their foresight into what they think is best. So again, it was a gut thing to do that.
Well, and now you trust your gut. I would say that's one of the biggest things that you have found about coaching, and the biggest benefit. And I'm thinking you continue to trust your gut to keep coaching with me. And I want to hear a little bit about that. And also to have to work with two people as coaches. That's very much an intuitive decision. And so I'm curious, tell us just a little bit about why you keep coaching. How is it helping you? Why do you find it useful? And then you had actually mentioned that you find these podcasts interesting when you hear people feel like they're finished coaching, and the noise in everyone's brain about, well, how come I'm not finished yet? And so this is actually a process for you, I think, in the moment to really think about, well, is there a finish line? Because I wonder for you if there's not. You are someone committed to ongoing growth. And you actually said that that's when you came alive again, is when you stopped thinking about, oh, this is my time off, I'm going to watch some shows. And, you decided, what do I want to learn about? How do I want to grow? So tell our listeners a bit about why you keep coaching with me, and then why you have two coaches, because I think that's super cool.
Right.
Open up possibilities.
Yeah, I think it's very intentional. I think that was been one of my words in the last year, I think, was intentional. 2023 word intentional and deliberate. So keep coaching with Jessie as a life coach is very intentional. Like, I feel like you will call me out if I don't do something that resonates with myself, just to make sure, like, I'm doing things for the right reason and the right situation. So it's spread out. It's not necessarily back to back to back, but it's never, I never lack anything to talk, lack of topics to discuss when we have a session, because there's always things that come up that you could perhaps do or have your mind not spin about. And then, and working with my high performance real estate coach was very intentional, but yet very intuitive. Like, I heard him talk, and then I met him and talked. And I would say, before I met him, I was like, I don't need that coach. I don't need that thing in my life. And then I met him, I'm like, how could I not have him in my life? Again, very intuitive, but yet intentional decision I made to work with him. And I would say sometimes, I'll be talking to him about something, maybe about telemedicine or something like that. He'll be like, so what's your life coach think?
Yeah. Well, and I think there's two things that came to mind as you were talking. One, we have this long relationship, so I really know your brain, and I can really call you out, and I do pretty quickly, which is nice because it's efficient. And so you don't have to meet that often, but it's efficient when there's something that comes up, we can address it. And then I think having two people who bring different insights and different lenses can be really helpful when you are trying to pivot, change. I mean, you've really changed who you are and how you approach the world dramatically. And you've given yourself permission to support yourself well along the way. And I think that's why you continue to support yourself. And it strikes me, I think most of our listeners know I still have a coach. And that's because when we want to continue to grow, we need help along the way. And as smart as we all are, and as productive, and that we can push ourselves to do things, there's a lens and an insight from someone else who knows you and knows your brain that can be really, really valuable and help you continue that trajectory or operate at your highest level for where you are now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think for me, I know I like to continue to learn and grow. So I think that's what working with you as a life coach has allowed me to do, and will continue to allow me to do. I think one of the reasons I work with my real estate business high performance coach was he can compress the timeline, but it's all a lot about mindset shifts, and it's all about abundance. Even though it's business, it's the same essential concepts that allow you to grow and to progress. It's the same coaching, really, Yeah.
And yet having two different people and two different voices and two different lenses, I think actually helps you grow more. And not just more, because we always say more is not better, but more fully, like in that 360 space, and in your relationships, which I think you now know, those aren't separate from any of the other stuff you're doing. They're very integral to how you approach real estate and how you approach medicine and how you approach everything else in your life.
Absolutely, absolutely, they are. They are. It's not in isolation that these things happen, for sure.
So at the end, I thought it would be fun just to talk about the words because I feel like you are someone, I've heard a lot of feedback about our recent word podcast and where Nicheng and I share our words for the year and how we choose words. And you are someone who's done this process with me 3, if not 4 times. I'm not quite sure how many times, but 4 times. Okay. And so I'm curious for you to share your journey with the words and how it's helped you, because your lens will be different than the lens that we share.
Right, right. So, I mean, those words, I think, allowed me to really be in touch with myself so that I could, the decisions I was making, the path I was forging, would allow me to be true. Do you want me to share my words?
Sure. And actually, what I'm thinking also is if you have 4 sets of words, and I keep lists of my words, you can actually go back and it sort of chronicles who you are over that timeline. And I can see a huge shift between what I wanted to work on in 2020 versus what I want to work on in 2024. And so it might share whichever ones you want, but I think as you share them, you will be able to reflect for folks a little bit about how you use them, or maybe just share this year's and how you use those.
Yeah. So, well, maybe I'll start with last year's because, that's when I found my second coach and I decided to continue one-on-one coaching with you. And I know personally for me, I need a one-on-one coach. So last year, I wanted to be very deliberate and intentional, and I wanted to be authentic. That was really important. And I wanted to trust myself, listen and hear myself so that I could use my intuition. And I also needed to be in the moment and allow some stillness and almost dullness so that I could really truly be in the moment. So that was good for last year. And then this year, I want to optimize, and some of that is business, real estate, optimize my time, optimize my zone of genius so that I can continue to enjoy what I do rather than be dragged down by the things I don't like to do. So,
I'm going to add in there, optimize your relationships too.
Optimize my relationships as well.
Yeah, it applies to all of it. Yeah.
Yes. And that will allow me to create time, create space, create something new. And then really, people always say people who are much younger than the both of us feel like they're old. And then I say to people, well, I started my journey in my 50s. So, and my third word is to ignite. So why can't somebody in their mid 50s continue to ignite themselves and, move to the next level, whatever level that is, emotionally and physically as well. I feel like I'm in amazing shape. I'm in better shape than I was a year ago. I'm stronger, I'm healthier. And part of it is that I want to be so that I can continue to live and optimize my life moving forward. I want to be healthy, so those are my words.
And I think you didn't do this all at once, as I think about it. Like those words are so different than when you came to coaching. And I would say you even came to coaching initially wanting to be stronger, and you really wanted to work on all the things, and yet you have to sort of work on different things at different times. And over the course of 3.5 years, you've changed all of it, really. And your words are sort of a reflection of that.
Absolutely. My life has changed tremendously. And even at the beginning of last year, I was like, oh, I'll work another 2 years at this job. I think that was what I was thinking. And gosh, 6 months into last year, I put in my notice.
And so this reminds me of things absolutely turned out better than you expect. You came in catastrophizing, worrying about the worst case scenario, but this was better than any scenario that you ever considered.
Absolutely. It's much better. It turns out better. And, I don't have these expectations of, oh, it has to go a certain way, because I'm enjoying the way it's going and it's unfolding. And I'm less of a planner now, because I just go by what feels right and, what's going to happen next.
It strikes me as you're practicing patience and presence.
Yes. Yes. Patience and presence, for sure.
Yeah. And one last question around mindfulness, because you mentioned presence a few times. And I know that when we started working together, mindfulness wasn't really anything that you had practiced per se. How do you think that played into your journey?
Yeah, I am a daily meditator, and that has allowed me to try to focus and be more present, and has also helped me let go of things and let myself feel things, and try to take that pause before you react.
Mm-hmm.
Which is really important. And, I know you do this podcast with Ni Chang, but I also took her mindfulness stress reduction course. And it was great, but it's very challenging to do. So that's,
And nonetheless, you're still a daily meditator. So here you are. Would you have ever thought you'd be a daily meditator?
Probably not. I think I'm going 3 years strong daily. So.
Yeah. And I always say in my coaching work that, we all have a different practice of mindfulness and a different practice of whether it's meditation or yoga. But I really do think it's integral to the long-term effects and to things sticking and staying and our ability to grow. And so if you're going 3 years strong, that is evidence. I'm going to make it evidence-based recommendation, but I see that time and time again. And so I think a lot of people feel like it's just extraneous or not necessarily relevant. And yet in your case, and in everyone's case, it's a key component to success and being able to transform in such big ways.
Yeah. In the beginning, I think I used it, the mindfulness meditation, just like having that ray of light through me, just to make it through my job in those, after you give your notice, you got to stay like the 90 days or 60, just to survive those last 60 days. I would meditate in the morning, even if it was a minute, and then meditate at lunch. It's halfway through the day. I can make it through the day. That's what it really helped me do.
And that practice has shifted as you've shifted. And the purpose of it has shifted. And again, that's it's a beautiful analogy of how we grow and all of the practices and the ways that we engage with coaching and mindfulness change over time.
Yes.
Do you have any final words? Anything else you want to share that we didn't cover?
Gosh, I think, as I've heard many coaches say, and I think I've said it before, you always can have a coach. And for one, I don't think in any realm, whether it be my professional or just life, I don't think I'm ever going to be done coaching. I think I'm good with that.
Yeah.
I'm content with that. I'm resolved to that fact. And it feels good and it feels right.
And I love hearing that, because I think on the podcast, actually, I've shared multiple different people's journeys. Some people are done. They do one round, they're done. We all come to this with for different reasons in different situations. And our outcomes are all good, but they're different. And I think it very much depends on, how you want to be approaching your life and your relationship to growth and being someone who wants to, continually grow. Some of us plateau, some of us want to keep going. And you have gifted yourself this opportunity for ongoing support, which is a beautiful thing.
Yes. Yes. Just like I go to the gym and pay for the gym, pay for your healthcare, I pay for my coaching, because it is an integral part of my life.
I love that. Thank you so much for doing this interview, this conversation. I love doing the reflections from folks' coaching journeys, because I think it very much helps people see possibility. And so, while sometimes I think it feels vulnerable, and I do hear from people who listen that they compare and despair. That's not the purpose. The purpose is really to inspire and provide hope. And to share so many different ways of engaging with this work and all of the different ways that it can impact your life. And in this case, turn out way better than you expected when you started.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks so much for joining us.
We encourage you to dive into the show notes for each episode for more learnings and resources.
We also invite you to take a listen to the many other Mindful Healers podcast episodes. And please share the podcast far and wide with colleagues, friends, and family.
If our message and approach resonate with you, we would love to work with you.
When you listen to a podcast, you consume information, but when you work with us, you can actually practice and change.
We offer coaching and mindfulness experiences, talks, workshops, retreats, and more. Connect with us at themindfulhealerspodcast.com.
The content of this podcast is not medical or life advice. We invite you to participate in the mindful moments we offer at the end of most of our podcasts, but please only do so safely.
Welcome to today's mindful moment. Today, we are going to enjoy some white space. White space to connect with yourself, to pause, to be still, to let the snow globe settle. Taking a moment to come into your body, pausing, coming back to the breath. And for the next 2 minutes, we will enjoy white space, quiet, stillness, allowing yourself to be still and enjoy the white space. If the distractions come, let them go out. Try to engage fully in this moment of white space. Let your brain rest. Take a moment to notice how you feel now. Do you feel a bit more grounded, a bit more settled, a bit more calm? Perhaps you have a bit more clarity about what you would like to do next. Taking a moment to capture the feeling, letting yourself bring it into your body to take forth with you after this moment of mindfulness, this moment of white space.
remembering that you can gift yourself a minute or two of white space at any time. Slowly open your eyes, coming back into the light if you had them closed. Thank you all so much for practicing with me today. May you all have moments of white space in the week ahead. May you be well.